Welcome to All That Matters, a show about what's really worth your attention in the markets and economy today. Join hosts Michael Antonelli and Ross Mayfield as they tackle the latest headlines and answer real questions from clients.
Welcome to All That Matters with Mike and Ross. Mike, it is the last episode of 2024, our last episode of the year. So we're going to do a bit of a recap, a bit of a look back, and then looking forward to 2025 predictions. So we've got three parts for you: one surprise, one lesson, one prediction. I do want to say up top, we're hearing all of the questions about new policies, new administration, tariffs, trade, immigration. We have an Outlook video coming in January that we're going to address all that. But it's the holidays, so a bit of a lighter fare here. And let's just dive right in, Mike. I want to hear your biggest surprise from 2024.
2024, what a year. When we came into it, Ross and I, we were really prepared for a lot of volatility and having to engage with the clients a lot about the election. And we did do a lot of the latter, but there really wasn't that much volatility. I'm going to put an image up on screen. I believe it comes via Goldman Sachs. It's a look at calendar year returns in the stock market. Okay, it's this big, wide kind of gap. The blue line is kind of the median, the average. The red line's this year. And what you'll notice is that 2024, my surprise, one of the best years in history, like really, really, really incredible. And this comes on the heels, my friends, of a 20% year in 2023. So back-to-back 20% years. I'm surprised that the stock market did this well. I think everybody was prepared for it to be way lower. And again, this reminds me that people's expectations almost never match up with reality. But also, why did the stock market do so well this year? It's pretty simple. Pretty simple. The economy's doing fine. The earnings of the companies are doing fine. Ross and I remind you of that all the time. And that's the reason why it did so well. 2024, my big surprise was, gosh, did it do really well, Ross?
It's a good surprise. That's the kind of upside surprise we want. Mine is maybe a little bit more mixed, but I think it's something that probably caught me a little off guard. I think it probably caught a lot of our clients off guard. But we spent the whole year talking about rate cuts, anticipating rate cuts, Fed. Yep. And then when the Fed finally gets to cutting interest rates in September, after all this time, interest rates go up, right? So they start cutting interest rates, but the 10-year treasury goes up. The long-term interest rates are the thing that the 30-year mortgage is based on, that most like auto loans and credit loans, like all of that kind of stems from long yields. And those have gone up to the right. So I think there's a bit of surprise, in the consumer base that interest rates are actually higher now than when the Fed started cutting interest rates. And that's a bit of a surprise probably to people who are looking to refinance or get into the housing market or whatever. The 30-year mortgage was like 6.5 at the start of the year. It's about 6.75 now. So I think that it is a surprise that interest rates have done what they've done. And I think it's a reminder, probably a good reminder, to set expectations going forward that the interest rate environment of the 2010s was not normal. And that what we're seeing today is like just a much more normal interest rate environment that's reflecting that good economy you were talking about. So it's a good thing in a way, but I think it's been a surprise for people who are looking to kind of borrow for some end. So something to keep in mind as we head into 2025 as well. But Mike, it was a busy, noisy, eventful year. What is your biggest lesson from 2024?
I have a lesson from 2024 that I think is going to be a lesson for every year for the rest of our careers, Ross. And I'm going to our producers put an image up on the screen. And what you're going to see is something that I have very often put into client events. I've put it into blogs. I use it all the time. It's a picture of a person in a raincoat who's being told by the TV that it's raining and storming, but yet outside you'll see that it's a gorgeous day. And this is a lesson that you need to digest for the rest of your investing life. And that is that fear and uncertainty are always a part of this journey. But if you tune into a lot of news, a lot of media, it can end up being a very, very difficult thing for you to manage. And let me just give you an example. Ross and I spent the entire year talking about the national debt, the decline of the dollar. We talked about central bank digital currencies. We did all of these things. These were all being told to people via media, via news, via blogs, via their friends. And yet the stock market, like I said in my surprise, was one of the best ever. You have to find a way to moderate your media consumption, not get rid of, just moderate, because that will always be the thing that knocks you out. It will always be. That fear that's being generated by the world will always be the thing that you will struggle with. So my lesson is you have to make sure you're not that person, Ross.
Yeah, it's the biggest impediment to successful long-term investing. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So I had two things. I think the first we've covered ad nauseum, so I'm not going to cover it again, but don't mix politics and investing. You'll have countless opportunities to do it in the future. It didn't work this year. It won't work in the future, so don't do it. I think my biggest lesson, and something that I'm hearing a lot now, so hopefully will be useful as people move into 2025 as well, is that a good year does not mean the next year is going to be bad. And that might sound simple, but 2023, the market was up 26%. We were at all-time highs. And if you go back and look at all of the like Outlook content that was out there, and there is so much Outlook content, I bet a lot of it was calling for, a soft year, a down year, hey, we can't have another 26% year. But what do we have? Even better, Mike, as you mentioned, It's like 26, 27% up as we're talking. 2019, 31%, 2021, 28%. The last 5 years, the market has more than doubled. Incredible. From 2019 to 2023. And then 2024 did what it did anyway. So momentum is really powerful in markets, and you just cannot miss these big upswings. They are so critical to building long-term wealth. So, you would think the same thing heading into 2025. Markets at all-time highs, hey, I need to take some chips off the table. The market might not do great next year, but the fact that that 2024 was so good is not a reason to get bearish alone at all. So that is the thing for me. I think it's important heading into 2025. And speaking of 2025, Mike, your prediction.
I have a prediction that I'm going to say is going to come true. Like I'm so convinced this is going to come true that I'm doing it. 2025, Mike's prediction that you could just bank on. So I was a trader in President Trump's former administration, the 2016 to 2020. I didn't work in private wealth. I was an equity trader, and I had kind of a front row seat to things that he said and policies and all those kind of things. And now in private wealth, I've found a way to kind of convey those in real, engaging in interesting ways. I think we're going to see what's called the Trump cycle. I'm labeling it the Trump cycle. I don't know what it would really be called, but think about like a 4-stage cycle. Okay. Number one stage is he says something on social media, and that's what he does. President Trump likes to make policy on social media. That is what he does. He likes to throw stuff out. I'm thinking this, I'm going to do this. And then the stock market has a reaction. Investors have a reaction. We'll hear from clients. We'll hear from the stock market. Maybe it's a negative reaction to something he says. And then we all remember in the third step that President Trump likes to measure his success by the stock market. He kind of likes to measure how well he's doing via these stock indices. And then the fourth step is, since that's the case, we all recover. The market recovers and we all recover. So that Trump cycle of say something, market reacts. We all remember he likes the stock market. The stock market recovers. I think that cycle will continue. And I want you to remember, and we said this a lot, that just because somebody says something doesn't mean it can actually happen. Ross and I spent so much time talking about unrealized capital gains taxes that never happened. It's just people say things, politicians in particular, they say things, but what can actually happen in the real world? And the stock market is really good at figuring that out. So Ross, what's your prediction?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be critical. And it's critical to remember that while it might be noisy over the next several years, the market was up over 70% in Trump's first term, and it was up 22% in his first year, 2017. So good to keep in mind as that cycle plays out on repeat. So I was trying to think of a prediction that would go cut against the grain of consensus a little bit. And the two that I narrowed it down to where it seems that there's a real consensus for U.S. over international as far as stock market performance. And then there seems to be a consensus that inflation will kind of be sticky and reaccelerate here, especially because of the potential for Trump and a unified government policies to kind of stoke the economy and inflation. I'm going to go with the latter. I'm going to say inflation actually comes down in 2025 and maybe meaningfully. I think that the drill baby drill will bring oil prices down. So gas prices are down. So that's the energy policy. The economy is cooling a little bit. Here, I think that housing will continue to slow. So the CPI, which is the official inflation metric, says that rents are up 5% year over year, but it is lagging. It looks backwards. The apartment list, which is like a apartment website, says that rents are actually down. Listed rents are down 1% year over year. So as that catches up, you'll see housing inflation come down. So, and then the final thing is tariffs and trade, right? There's a lot of talk about tariffs being inflationary, but 2017 to 2019, when we were going through this the first time around, inflation was 2%. It never had a single month over 3%. They have the potential to be inflationary, but we haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to buck against the trend and say inflation moderates, the Fed cuts, and we kind of move on with our lives. Yep.
That's a good one. Ross, let's do some. So one of my favorite things, Ross, ever was in Jeopardy. They used to have this category called Potpourri, and I think it's just a cool word, number one. Let's do like a holiday potpourri. Like what's on your mind? What's going on with Ross, the family, like pop culture? Here's kind of the things that I've been thinking about. The Ringer Podcast Network, which is something that I love. They do movies and music and stuff like that. They have a Yacht Rock documentary coming out. Yacht Rock, which I think is the greatest music ever. it's a Gen X take probably, but you guys all know that I love Patagonia and Yacht Rock are like two of the things that I love. We went and saw the Wicked movie. There's these kind of moments in pop culture history where like a movie comes out and everybody kind of latches onto it. I think Wicked will be one of those. It's musical. It's got some great stars in it. It's a great story. Like my family's seen it in the Broadway a few times. I think if you haven't seen it yet, Wicked would be a good one for the family, especially. And then the last one, Ross, I have a question for you. So I rewatched Home Alone, which a classic, right? A classic movie. They obviously, it's a family that leaves a child behind. They're going to Paris in the movie. They're taking 5 kids to Paris. They leave one behind. So my question, Ross, is I was thinking, like, the mom comes back. Do you think, like, the kids, they stay in Paris? Like, the other 4, the dad are like, we're going to the Louvre. We're going to we don't care about him. He'll be fine. Like, they stay, right? They don't all come back.
Yeah, I mean, they paid for those plane tickets. They paid for that hotel. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for the dad who's like solo with 4 kids at that point. But yeah,
that would suck. Yeah,
they're 100% staying.
Yeah, they're not coming back.
I would say questionable decision making by the parents throughout that and that movie and the sequel. To be honest with you, so and then what do you think about the? So last year was Barbenheimer, right? Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
This year, Glicked, Gladiator 2, and Wicked.
There's also Moana, right? There's also like
Moana 2.
Moana. Like, so like, yeah. But I do think you're right. I think I like that when there's 2 good movies in the theaters at the same time.
Yeah. You're appealing to broad audiences. Yeah. I'll see Moana 2 first. That'll be, I mean, I have a 3-year-old. Moana was big in the house. So Moana 2 is on the docket, but I'll keep Wicked back in mind. I'll take the recommendation.
Yeah. No, I think it's, I mean, what's your favorite Christmas? Like, have you watched any Christmas movies lately? Got any hot takes for Christmas movies?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'm willing to go as far as to say that the third Grinch, the lesser seen Grinch, is actually the best Grinch. But I'm getting there. The DreamWorks Grinch from like a couple years ago is really good. The first 2 are kind of like, they're kind of mean. They're kind of nasty in a way, which I know is like part of it. But like, again, we have a 3-year-old. It's like, boy, that dude is wicked, especially the Jim Carrey one. So
remember, like the Grinch doesn't hate Christmas; he hates people. And you know what? Yeah. Like after 50 years of my life, I don't like hot take is the Grinch, right? Like he just hates being around people. Like I'm not sure it was Christmas per se, but I do like that one. That's a good Christmas movie too. So, all right, Ross and I are we're gonna wrap up here. Again, if you're waiting for content around tariffs and immigration, all these things that are on your mind, we know they're on your mind because we get these emails. We're going to do that in January. We're going to have a whole video on that. Ross and I will be doing a Baird client event. We're going to do a Baird webinar for clients early in January. So you got a lot of stuff to come from us early in January about all the things that are on your mind. So don't worry, we are going to address them. Ross, it was we're filming this. The stock market's up. Hopefully nothing happens by the end of the year. I mean, we don't know what the next month's going to hold, but hopefully it's just nice and quiet. But it was a good year, Ross. I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad we're building our audience together here, my friend.
Yeah, man. Good to talk to you as always. Happy holidays to you and the family.
We'll see everybody in the new year.
Thanks for watching All That Matters. Opinions expressed in this episode belong solely to Mike and Ross and do not necessarily represent the opinions of Baird. This program is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any investment decisions.